because you've been taught that love is supposed to come from all the systems, your dog, your cat, your family, and everybody else has got to fill up your heart. And understand something, it's not your fault. And understand that you've always done your best. Everybody's done their best. But when you finally learned that love is a self-serve job, that healthcare is self-care, love is self-love. And when you are no longer hurting, you won't go around hurting your family and other people. And understand something, like I said, love is like oxygen. We cannot live without it. We cannot live without it. And that's why it has to be a self-serve job. Now, do you know what human being means? Okay? A human being, okay, would know where the love is. A human being would know that you have to go inside. And that's how you fill your heart up with love and you become the light and you shine that light. And then darkness will not come in your life. It will not come in your life. Look at, you may not believe this, but through this whole COVID thing, darkness has not come in my life. I have been busier than I'll get out. I don't take any time to moan, groan, complain, or lock myself down, or to wash my hands with antibacterial soap. Understand something. I don't clean my house any better than I used to. I don't do anything different because I know that I'm a walking glob of bacteria, and that if I don't get negative bacteria on my hands, on my body, we used to let our children play in the dirt, lick and lick and even suck on toys and play on the ground. Now everything is called sanitized. Well, understand something. I just want to say this. I don't want to get into it too heavy, but here's the deal. Go ahead, stay locked down. I hope you sanitize the whole house. I hope you washed your hands. Because guess what? As soon as they allow every one of you people who have done that, you're going to come out and guess what? You don't have an immune system. Because we have 50 trillion cells, but 500 trillion bacteria, and we need to bring on negative bacteria, negative viruses all the time. This is how we keep an immune system. You know what? Yes, lock down and support and help the sick. But healthy people should not be in the house right now. They should be at the beach. Did you know if you went to the beach, the microbes in the sand are healing? Did you know if you went to the beach, the salt water, the sun are the greatest healers from God Almighty? This whole thing is a big scam. I don't care. It doesn't matter. This is just my opinion. Don't get upset. If you don't like my opinion, don't get upset because you're only going to cause more inflammation, which will cause cancer, which we're talking about tonight. And understand something. A human being means human spirit. Where the hell is our spirit? Okay. And then people call up and they go, Dr. Wolfe, you know, you talk about vibration and you talk about vibration all the time and frequencies. You know, you were raised a Christian, but that doesn't sound very Christian-like to me. Who are these people? What's coming on to us? We have been taught to hate each other, judge ourselves, hate ourselves. The whole thing is going mental here. Okay. So now we've got somebody that used to run Microsoft that is now the head person in health around the world. He's now the guru, and he paid off the World Health Organization, which has nothing to do with health. I mean, just a few weeks ago, they said they're going to smash down our doors and drag us out if we had COVID and lock us up. The reality is this. We have to wake up. Let me tell you something. Tonight, the talk is cancer and inflammation, scar tissue issue. But the reality is everything happens in the mind first before in the body. Your thoughts make and shape your life. The invisible makes and shape your life. The same people that say, oh, don't talk about vibration, don't talk about frequency, that's voodoo. Well, what do you think the Lord thy God is? What do you think we come here as? Please, let's pull our heads out of our butt and understand something. We are greater than you think. I'm not upset. I'm just done with all this. Yes, I was raised a Christian, and guess what? Nobody told me I had to conform to your values. You don't have to conform to mine. But the reality is, why can't we be human beings? That means, what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that we are spirit beings having a physical experience. Spirit beings having a physical experience. And most of us are having a really crappy experience right now because we left the spirit part behind. We have dishonored the spirit part. You are much bigger than you think. You have no idea. The invisible creates the physical. And everything is called the field. You are the field. The Spirit's called your field. It is a force to be reckoned with. Did you know that you are made out of atoms, and atoms are invisible, and atoms are empty? No, they're not. They have your spirit in them. You take enough atoms, they make molecules, because atoms make the physical. A molecule is not invisible. It's a physical thing, but you need atoms to create that. Let me tell you something. If you don't believe in that, then let me see you try to drive through a tornado. A tornado, what is a tornado? A tornado is an invisible energy. The only reason why you see a tornado is because there's dirt there. Try to drive through a tornado. That's called a force. That's called a force field. And that's what you are. You come as a force field, right? So where's your force field? Where's your force field? What's protecting you now? So understand something. The word cancer, let's talk about that. All right. So we'll put up the first slide. So cancer. The C in cancer, what does it stand for? Well, the first thing it stands for is corruption. Like there's not enough corruption going on in the world right now. The world is so corrupt. Everybody that is supposed to be in charge of the world right now is totally corrupt. And so you get enough corruption. What do you get when you get corruption? Well, you get conflict. Tell me you're not conflicted. Okay, tell me you're not conflicted. If you're buying into this story right now, whether it's cancer, whether it's COVID, whatever it is, when you become conflicted, it's because you're buying into a lie. Because the truth will set you free. So now, what do we got? Corruption, then we get conflict. What do we get after that? We get contamination. Because you cannot have conflict in the human body without causing contamination, and that leads to inflammation. So cancer is an inflammation, scar tissue issue. And why do I say that? Well, because inflammation causes scar tissue. Wherever you have inflammation in your body, the longer and the stronger you have it, your body makes fibrin. It sends it there to wall off the inflammation so it doesn't spread because it loves you. And it'll keep sending the fibrin as long as you have an issue that's going to be in your tissue. And the issue starts off as a mental thing that becomes a physical thing. That's the bottom line. If you could get this, you could get everything. So then if it continues, guess what happens? You're draining yourself because you're at war with yourself. That's called an autoimmune disease. And if it continues, your body's going to send calcium from your bones. That's why we have osteoporosis, the worst in North America than anywhere else, because we're an inflammation nation, and we actually think that scary dairy is a food, and it's not. So now we're pulling calcium from our bones, and now we've got the scar tissue coming there. And so what else do we have? Well, we have the our adrenals pumping out adrenaline, and then we have cortisol, and then we have histamine. That creates a lot of lactic and uric acid. So that's the glue. So now we got the fibrin, now we got the glue, and now we got the cement, and now we're going to create a wall. And guess what? And those are the issues in our tissues. We're making these physical blocks. The more physical blocks you have, the less your spirit energy flows. End of story. You need to get this. And you got to get this tonight, everybody, because it's the physical blocks within your body that bind you up. So understand, if your practitioner is not dealing with the physical blocks within inside of you, then he's not dealing with your true health issues. And if you're not dealing with your emotions, and if you don't know how to master your emotions, which is one of the main reasons why you came down here, if you don't master your emotions, then somebody else is going to master you. Oh, wait a minute, we're all hiding in the house. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I got that. And you might say, oh my God, why is he being sarcastic? Well, because guess what? You know what people say to me when I do a one-a-day and I lay out the facts? Dr. Wolfe, are you angry? My question to them would be, you're not? No, you're just depressed. Let me explain something. Take a look at that first slide, okay? Put the first slide up again, please. Take a look at the person that's kneeling down. Take a look at their head. Their head is on fire. Because what happens is, when you have a belief that you cannot make peace with, that belief will set your brain on fire. And if it continues, your brain will become beef jerky. This is why your thoughts are foggy. You can't get clear. This is why you get headaches. This is why you lose your energy. This is why your eyes will burn. Okay? Understand something. When your brain goes on fire, it does one thing, and it says, I can't take it anymore, and it then puts you into depression. How many people are in their homes right now depressed and they don't know what to do? Well, for one thing, every time you're in fear, false evidence appearing real. When you're in fear, you contract down. You don't make good decisions. You break things, and you hurt your body, and you hurt your family. And that's the bottom line. So then your brain comes on fire. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. When your brain becomes on fire, it wants to protect itself. So inflammation is the cancer. Now here's the deal. What is the biggest moneymaker for pharma? It's cancer. All right? So listen, are you tired of running and jumping and skipping and cutting your hair and giving money to a very corrupt corporation, being Big Pharma, being the Cancer Association? Because that's what's going on. But we all want to be part of something. We all want to believe that we have purpose. So I would tell you to find your passion and find your real purpose in life and find out what you're doing here. Find out how you can make a difference with yourself and with your family. That's where it starts first. All right? This cancer thing, okay, it is so corrupt. And the thing is you can go in and treat anything, but they won't bother you. But when you start treating cancer, and if you find a cure, you could get yourself killed. That's the reality. If you say the wrong thing, you could get your clinic shut down. And if you're a medical doctor, you better walk the fine line. So don't kid yourself. It's the biggest money maker going. So let's move on. So here's the deal. Remember what I just said about your brain? Well, understand something. The invisible creates the physical. If you truly knew that 70% of all your beliefs were negative beliefs, which they are in the majority of the population, you can't lock up the whole world without it being negative. I mean, if everybody knew who they were, their authentic selves, they would hold the line. Why are healthy people locked up in their homes? It never worked before. It had nothing to do with anything. And I'm not going to get into that tonight, but we do need to get into this to a certain degree. And if I'm causing some people to get a little upset with me, well, that might not be so bad. That might not be so bad. But here's the deal. Your brain, okay, will protect itself. So first your psyche, which is your emotions, your beliefs, right, will go into the brain. And your brain, which is your mind, it creates your body. But the brain doesn't create the body. The mind doesn't create the body. The beliefs inside the mind create the body. So depending on the beliefs will trigger the certain emotions and will trigger the certain chemicals and hormones that go into your body to either heal it, restore it, or tear it apart. I can talk to people with chronic illness every day, like I do today and every other day, and trying to get them to buy into that is the hardest thing because the subconscious doesn't want to buy into anything except what it knows. So whatever is in the media, whatever's repeated the most at the kitchen table, whatever's repeated the most in schools, whatever's repeated the most at the bar is what you're going to believe. That's what your beliefs are based on. How's that working for you? Now understand something. So as soon as your brain has a negative thought that comes up against the spirit, you're a human being, not a human doing. But guess what? We're all human doings now, aren't we? We're human doings because we're doing the right thing. Are we really doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? I don't think we're doing the right thing. If we were doing the right thing, we'd be healthy, wealthy, and wise. I don't think we're either one of those things right now. So the reality is when there's a thought that comes into your brain that creates inflammation because it goes against your spirit being, human being, then what it's going to do, it's going to cause inflammation. And if it continues, it's going to cause scar tissue within the brain. So you're going to have, if you take a look at this right now, you're going to see that certain cancers will show scar tissue in certain parts of the brain. You can actually get a person and they say they've got this type of cancer. You know they're going to have scar tissue or inflammation in that part of the brain. The scar tissue will be if the inflammation has been going on forever. And if it's inflammation in that part of the brain, we know that that belief, okay, that destructive belief has been going on for not a long time. It's still acute. So we need to bring down the fire. And the only way to do that is to change your thoughts. Now, I'm going to leave that alone tonight because in my other lecture, I went into that deeply. Tonight, we're going to talk about the physical. Now, you might be wondering, wow, this guy, he's like really coming on fairly strong here. You know what? I tell all my patients is this. I have a 1 hour or I have a few minutes to get my point across to your subconscious, not to your heart, not to your spirit, but to your subconscious. And your subconscious is as stubborn as a mule. You ever know how people don't change? Well, they don't know they can change because they don't know that they can change their beliefs, and they don't understand that their beliefs are not their beliefs. They're their mummies and daddies, or the systems, or the school they went to, or the people they hung around, or the Netflix shows that they would watch. So who knows? The information comes in, and remember, from 0 to 7, you're just a walking, talking sponge, and everything that comes in, you have no filter. So that means if your father was beating your mother, okay, that means if your mother was beating you, that means if there was just no one beating each other, but just yelling and screaming in the house, this is all normal and natural. When you say to somebody, do you know what love is? Sure do. Do you know what health is? Sure do. Because we only compare it to the family we have. We have to think outside the box. We have to get outside this box. And if we don't, it's going to become an invisible prison, which it has for most people because their minds are. Look at old age. Take a look at this, the slide I just brought up. Old age, a scar tissue issue. Understand something. Everything is in the mind before it's in the body. If you could just get this. And I know that you don't want to get this, but you created everything. You created everything in your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly and the pretty and everything else. You created it. And understand, you don't want to create through default. You want to create through design. So that means you have to master your mind. So whether you can see this young girl, she's got carpal tunnel syndrome. You can see this lady, she's not that old in the middle picture. She's what? She might be what? 35, 36 years old, and she's got a crutch already because she was emotionally crippled before she was physically crippled. And you see how the middle picture, her hips are wider? Well, we know that she's got constipation, she's got inflammation, okay? So she's got crystallization, calcification, scar tissue formation in her groin. And why are her hips getting so wide? Well, because there's so much inflammation in her groin because she's been constipated, reabsorbing her own waste that she needs to put big hips on because those are called saddlebags for the inflammation and all the toxins because we don't want the ovaries, we don't want the uterus, and we don't want the fallopian tubes to be cut out. And we definitely, guess what, don't want her with cancer, so let's create saddlebags. So understand something. Old age is a state of mind before it's a state of body. All right, so age, where the mind goes, the body follows. You know what? Did you ever meet someone and it didn't matter what age they were? They were just so bloody youthful. You just love them so much. So understand something. You might think that these three ladies, okay, in this slide, you can't do it. And this is exceptional. It's not exceptional. Anybody can do this. You know what? You've got to feed the spirit to heal the body. And I'm telling you, if you were to talk to these three ladies, you would find out that their spirit, they're full of spirit. You know what I mean? And, when I was a kid, people would say, wow, he's full of spirit. And they said it in a bad way because I was getting myself into trouble all the time. But I was getting myself into trouble because my father didn't really pay a lot of attention to me. And my mother became an alcoholic at a very early age. So the only way I could get attention, because I needed it, because guess what? I already told you, you can't live without love. You can't live without oxygen. It's not going to happen. So let's move on. So, inflammation, okay? Take a look at that picture. And you see it, that rope? Okay, so understand something. All the tissues in your body are where you feel the pain. Everybody thinks that it's nerve pain. Well, it can be, but it's muscle pain. Everybody thinks it's bone pain, but it's hardly bone pain. The only time you feel bone pain is when you've got cancer. Not a lot of people have bone cancer, but they said, I can feel it in my bones. Well, because it's a really deep ache. I get it. But understand something. This inflammation that was created by your mind, okay, that dumped the chemicals, the hormones that were not positive, chemicals and hormones, created the acidity that then created the inflammation, because your body gives you inflammation because it gives you pain to tell you that you're off course. So when you tell your body to shut up with drugs or you try to ignore the pain, it's like you're ignoring your best friend, your body's physical GPS. So inflammation becomes scar tissue formation, which leads to crystallization, calcification, and decreased circulation, because now you've got these physical blocks. And when you get these physical blocks, you don't get the oxygen, you don't get the nutrition, and you don't get the detoxification. So instead of the cells dying, they want to survive, so they have to adapt. So everything in your body is about adapting to the environment. So if there's a certain area of your body that is under attack, okay, and it's not getting the nutrition or the oxygen, it wants to adapt. So guess what? Don't get enough oxygen, don't have enough love coming in here, okay? So now I'm going to live off of what? I'm going to live off of lactic acid, and I'm going to live off of sugars. And I'm going to create my own blood supply, because I am a foreign entity in this body, but I need to survive. And I need to have my own blood flow, because I can't live off the blood flow that's in the body, because there's too much oxygen to make me grow stronger, because even the tumor wants to grow. Everything wants to survive. And remember something, that tissue, if it didn't adapt into cancer, you wouldn't even be alive, because that's a storage shed for very toxic poisons. So if we can change ourselves on an emotional, mental level, we'll be able to do it on a physical level. When you just do it on a physical level, it's going to backfire on you. How many people do you know said, I'm a 3-time breast cancer survivor, a 2-time breast cancer survivor, or they can't get rid of their cancer, but they kind of keep it at bay? Well, because the invisible has to change before the physical will change. Okay, so now I want to show you something. You see this rope? Okay, so let's say that that was muscle tissue. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is if I pull on this really tight, okay, it becomes really condensed and it becomes thinner. You see how it's thinner? Now it's thicker, right? Now it's thinner. Okay, so what happens is it becomes beef jerky, just like this right here. We'll be going through it. That's what happens to your tissue. It gets flattened and it's dehydrated. And I'm going to go through this in a little bit, all right? So let's keep moving. So what happens here is you start off with healthy tissue. Healthy tissue is going to be thicker, all right? But as the scar tissue moves in because of the inflammation, if there's too much inflammation in that tissue, you're going to have scar tissue move in, which is fibrin, okay? You're going to have lactic acid, uric acid move in. So that is to protect the tissue, actually, believe it or not, and to keep the inflammation there so it doesn't spread throughout your body. Now, if that continues, you're not going to have the oxygen, the nutrition, like I just said, so you're going to have a tumor. So now you're going to have this big physical block. Now let's try to understand something. A person who has cancer has 20 to 30 blocks throughout their body. So if you have a tumor, that means that you have been having a lot of negative emotion for a lot of years, okay? And we know that it deals with a lot of subconscious hate and anger. That's how you get cancer. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. But that's how you get cancer, and it stores it in there. So remember something. So your body is always trying to adapt and protect itself, and it's going to become what your beliefs are. So look at the people right now. Okay, whether you want to believe this or not, okay, let's talk about this 1 year from today, or 1 to 1.5 years from today, and let's see how the cancer rate skyrocketed. Let's see how many people have heart attacks. Let's see how many people have autoimmune disease after this little adventure we're going through. And I'm not trying to make fun of it, but you know what? Life is an adventure, and the reality is you're either going to be the hero of this story, or your immune system is going to be the downfall of this story. Okay, so let's keep going on. So just to break this up a little bit, everybody, if you email me at quickstart@docofdetox.com, I'll send you my 7 simple steps. This is not about anything except empowering you. How to create the perfect day. You really need to understand that. So reasons why the body creates scar tissue? Well, guess why? It creates scar tissue, displaced calcium, and crystallization in your muscles, joints, tissues, because you're in a sympathetic state all the time. Let me ask you a question. how much of today did you feel at peace and calm with the world? Okay, so we know on a good day, before all this started, that the average person was in a parasympathetic state 2 to 5% a day. And I didn't make that up, guys. Okay, they were in the present moment in a parasympathetic state, which is a healing state, 2 to 5% a day. So in this society that we live in now, we don't even realize that we're in a sympathetic state, because when we feel exhausted, we think we're not in a sympathetic state, but our belief systems are still racing us. All right, so you're in a sympathetic state. That's part of it. To wall off leaky gut. How many people have leaky gut? Well, you don't have an autoimmune disease unless you have leaky gut. 92% of the population have that. Okay, pain and inflammation. Well, your body wants to keep it isolated. Can't have it spreading, because guess what? Your body loves you. Remember that. Okay, to stop the inflammation from spreading, like I said, stop the destruction of healthy tissue, because it will spread. If you do not change your mind, okay, with the thoughts you have, then it's going to put your whole body on fire. Okay. Wall off parasitical attack, because any tissue that becomes weakened tissue, that's where the parasites go. I just love how people do parasite cleanses. You know, if you learned how to do the perfect day every day, you wouldn't have to do a parasite cleanse, because a parasite can't live in a high vibrational body. It cannot live in a human being. It'll only live in a human doing. Do you understand? So it's very important that you understand that you don't need to do a parasite cleanse every 6 months or every year if you're vibrationally high, because you can only have inside of you where your vibration is. So the higher it is, the healthier you are. It just wouldn't live there. Wall off, and all the other thing is to wall off and slow down cancer. That's why we have scar tissue, believe it or not. That same scar tissue that you don't like, that fibroid, that tumor, it's trying to wall off the cancer and keep it captive so it doesn't go throughout your body. To deaden the pain. That's right. How many people, like Grandpa, you see him and he's just like this, right? And he goes, "Grandpa, you okay? You look like you're really in pain." Don't feel a thing. Because the scar tissue has just deadened all his nerves, deadened the pain throughout the body. And he's got all these physical blocks in him. So he's cut off his whole circulation. All right, let's move on. So the reality is, okay, energy blocks, okay, in the mind equal physical block in the body, okay? And that is called, on an extreme case, cancer. Not on an extreme case, it could be called constipation. It could be called arthritic joints. It could be called diabetes. It could be called liver disease. Every disease in the human body is a block, is a physical block that first started off as a mental block. And depending on the issues in your mind will depend where the issues go in the tissues. And depending on how much energy you put into a negative thought will depend on how fast the disease comes and how bad it is. Is it going to be a raging forest fire, or is it just going to be a slow burn? Okay, so let's move on. So the reality is, you can take a tumor and make it into scar tissue and then make it into healthy tissue, everyone. Okay? Just as you took healthy tissue, made it into scar tissue, into a tumor, you can reverse that. But guess what? Did you notice something? We all know that somehow we were responsible for creating the tumor. But because, okay, please do not get upset with me or yourself, and I don't mean it in a bad way. But the reality is, first, there's two things, okay? It's us getting to really embrace our spirit energy. Now, religion got in between that, didn't they? Did they? Listen, it was Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. I was never told when I was younger that I had a spirit and I needed to feed my spirit to heal my body, and that I was a little spirit of God. And you know what? I was never taught that way. I was taught, religion would get in between that and tell me that I wasn't good enough, or that I had to repent to earn that. No, you are that. You could never be anything else. You need to let yourself off the hook. Do not let religion, and then came along the medical system, and they got in between it, didn't they? Because they don't recognize the spirit. They don't recognize spirit energy. But meanwhile, all their testing devices, when you go there and you've got cancer, what are they doing? All their testing devices are testing your energy levels, your spirit energy levels. That's what they're testing. They're testing your spirit energy levels, your frequency, to see how sick you are. But meanwhile, no, they're not going near there. It's just a physical problem. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we know that inflammation and scar tissue, okay, is cancer's cloak of invisibility. So you've got to bring down your inflammation to zero. So let me ask you a question. Have you taken a little mini you on your shoulder and looked at how you respond to things? Who pisses you off? Who sets you off? Maybe I'm pissing you off. I don't know. But you got to not do that. You got to understand that every time that you get pissed off, every time that you get angry, every time that you get depressed, that is called self-abuse. Now, you can blame it on me tonight, or you can blame it on your wife or your children or society, but understand something, it's your responsibility. You didn't have to get pissed off, and every time you do, all you're doing is feeding a dysfunctional belief that's not truly you, that you don't know you took on when you were 0 to 7, you took that on. Okay, so your personality is your reality. If you're not going to change parts of your personality, you're going to have the same bloody reality. It's never going to change. And wouldn't it be nice, don't you think your family would like it if you'd stop getting angry? If you'd stop getting depressed? If you'd maybe connect to your breath and learn how to love you? Learn how to love you, care for you, let yourself off the hook? Cancer is called not letting yourself off the hook. Now, you might think you've done it on a conscious level, but it's the subconscious program that you're running that won't let you off the hook or anybody else. Listen, if you've got cancer right now, let me just tell you, who you pissed off at? Who do you hate? Mommy, daddy, your wife, your children, society, yourself? We have to work on this, and we've got to get rid of this and understand something. A lot of times we have issues in our tissues, and we think that the person who we hate or that we've hurt is thinking about this. And if we brought it up to them, they go, "What are you talking about? I love you. What are you talking about? I haven't thought about that in 20 years. Watch out for the programs that you're running, because you're not going to get rid of the inflammation. And if you don't get rid of the inflammation, you're going to keep making scar tissue. You're going to keep pulling calcium from your bones, and you're going to keep on crystallizing. Okay? And that's how it goes. All right? Now, for anybody who would like to take a look, why don't you go and take a look at my perfect day guide and take a look what a perfect day might look like. Okay? It's on page 40. Just walk through it. Take a look at the diet. Take a look at the breathing exercises. Take a look at the Love Band, Life Band stuff. Take a look at the different things. Look at the pelvic activation squat. Start doing things. Why don't you have fun with your body? Oh my God. Go have fun with your body. Okay? Go love your body. You know what? Have a great relationship with your body, because it's your buddy. It should be your best buddy. Okay, so let's talk about things. Now, what brought me to wanting to do what we call Wolfe Non-Surgical? Okay, I'm going to tell you something. Back when I was 27 years old, I had a wake-up call. You know, the first thing I did when I got out of school is I went and became a colon therapist, right? After that, I went and hitchhiked to become a colon therapist. After I did that, then I went to massage therapy school. It didn't take long from massage therapy school to realize something, everyone, okay? And I'll tell you what that is. You're using your hands. And guess what? This was a 2-year program. And the reality is that what I learned was, I learned a lot about the body, the physical body, anatomy, all of that stuff. I really appreciate it. But the reality is the massage therapy training I had, you cannot use your hands and feel scar tissue. You cannot feel your hands and feel calcium deposits. You cannot use your hands and feel crystallization in the body. You can't do it. You can go in and soften things up, and you can make people feel better, but it's not really a body work. It's not a real therapy that gets down to the root of it. And I am not picking on massage therapists. They know how hard they work. And yes, they are helping people. I didn't say they're not helping people, but I'm telling you, when it comes to a scar tissue issue, you cannot take it apart. And that's the bottom line. You can't feel it with your hands. I'm trying to show you, when it comes to scar tissue, calcification, and crystallization, there's not a lot out there. Then I became an acupuncturist. I got my doctorate in it. And guess what? Because I knew that if I could move energy around, because I knew there was something going on, so we got to get the blockages moving. But the reality is the acupuncture works, and it does. It helps to open up the meridians, help the energy flow in the body, which is real, which exists, which is called our field. But the reality is the physical blocks made out of scar tissue crystallization, okay, and calcification, it wasn't doing anything. I couldn't get them to move. You know, you got to melt that crystallization. You got to pull that scar tissue apart and to allow that calcium to get loose so that you can get it back into the bones, in which you can. You can get all your calcium back into the bones. Everybody ends up with either osteopenia or osteoarthritis, but you know what? You can get all the calcium back in the bones, and we can prove that. I don't want to talk about that tonight, but let's talk about chiropractics. Amazing, isn't it? Chiropractics, aligning up the body, and that's what they do, especially the spine. But the reality is, even chiropractics, they don't deal with the scar tissue issue. Understand something. All scar tissue in the body, it is like what? I'll get into that in a second. But all scar tissue in the body it's dehydrated tissue. I hope you know that. It crystallizes. The connective tissue becomes a hard fiber tissue because of the fibrin, and then calcium gets pulled there, like I've talked about before. So you can put the joint back into place, but it's going to pop out again, because I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to show you. I'm going to actually show you that when we would work on somebody's spine, when you go in there and you use what's called Wolfe Non-Surgical, and if you can find another technique, go and do it. We will use our elbow, and we will go in there and loosen up the calcium. We will go in there and pull the scar tissue apart that's in between the vertebrae and the discs, okay? And work on the discs. It takes us an hour to an hour and a half just to do from the spine, from the coccyx right up to the occiput. And that's not even counting the occiput and doing the occiput. That's an hour and a half treatment. So guess what? When we're done, that person is 1 inch to 2 inch taller. So you're going to tell me that people they lose bone? That's what everybody thinks. No, they don't. The actual disc in between the vertebrae, they dehydrate, and that's where you lose and you become shorter. Go figure. So like in an hour, you're going to go from 1 inch to 2 inch taller. And I'm not making this up. I'll prove it to anybody who comes here. So understand, so even when they tell you that the discs are worn out and now you've got to get your spine fused, it's not true. It's not a true story. It's a true story for them because they don't have the rest of the story. Because nobody goes in there and deals with the scar tissue issue. Why do you think people will say, yes, I got rid of my pain, but now I'm stiffer, I'm getting old? You don't need to get old. You can get older, but you don't need to get old. And then physiotherapy, what do? They give you exercises, they give you stretching things, but did they get in and get rid of the scar tissue? Did they turn the scar tissue back into connective tissue? Did they bring the blood flow back? Because understand something, every time that you have an injury, every time that you have surgery, every time that you have chronic inflammation or even acute inflammation, when the body heals itself, there's always scar tissue to deal with. And if you don't go in and remove the scar tissue, those are the physical blocks that are blocking the oxygen, the nutrition to the cells, and the proper detoxification of the cells. And that's the God's truth. And you know, people will say, you know what? And I'm telling you, every one of these therapies that I'm talking about, they all have their place. But they don't go in and deal with the scar tissue issue. You need to pull that fibroid apart. You need to go in and the tumors grow legs. You need to go in and take those legs apart so that you get rid of the feeders for that tumor. I'm going to prove this. I'm going to prove it today. All right? So let's talk about trigger point therapy. Trigger point therapy is where you hold your elbow, you hold your thumb down on the knot, on the scar tissue, on the trigger. And you'll soften it, you'll make the person feel better, but first red light, a little bit of anxiety, the spine will either pop back out of place, okay, or the knot will get hard again. You know as well as I do, every time you get anxiety, you feel oh my God, that knot in my neck, every time I stress out, every time I get angry, every time I get tired. Well, what do you think you're doing to the tumor? Every time that you stress out, every time that you get overtired, when you do not self-care, self-love, and you push yourself continually, you'll blow out. Think about it. Anybody with cancer, if they don't know how to manage their emotions when there's trauma in the family, boom, cancer blows out, they're laid up in bed. Wow. How often does that happen? How often does it happen that people with cancer will not talk about it, will not go for help? Mostly, I'll tell you right now, women with breast cancer, they'll hide out until that thing becomes a piece of beef jerky. And then it's so hard. But we can go in there and through using Wolfe Non-Surgical and clapping and doing the proper things, believe it or not, you can turn that beef jerky back into connective tissue. But are you going to take massive personal action and say, I'm going to love myself? I'm going to come first and foremost this time in my life right now. And guess what? Women aren't taught that. Women are they're taught to be caretakers and to run themselves right down to the ground until they're 40 and 50 and going, I don't know what love is. I definitely don't know what self-love is, and I don't know what taking care of myself is. And there's the shame right there. And I'll be talking about that when I'm putting out a masterclass called I Am Woman, and I'm going to go through the whole history back 5,000 years and show how religion undermined the feminine power, and how if the feminine power doesn't take their place right now, we'll have the sixth mass extinction happen within the next few years. I guarantee it. Without women taking their place and getting out there. They need to lead the world. Men have screwed it up. And that's that. That's all I want to say about that. And then there's tapping. Tapping is great and it works. But nothing works like clapping, everyone. So check out my clapping video. Because when you start clapping, or when I do non-surgical, when you massage, you massage. When you do trigger point, you do trigger point. When you do chiropractic, you do chiropractic. When you do physio, you do physio. When I do Wolfe Non-Surgical and a person has a purple mark after, okay, or they have a bruise that shows after, I didn't do that. I didn't do the bruise. The bruise was already in them. That was the disease. If you don't want to have that come to the surface and heal the body, fine. That was the physical block. I teach what's called clapping. When you clap part of your body, that part of your body will go red. When I do Wolfe Non-Surgical, a healthy person, it will go red, but it will never bruise. It only bruises and will look purple or black or green or brown spots when there's disintegration and contamination in the tissue and in the blood in that area, and there's physical blocks, and you need to get that. But no, guess what? You know what you're saying right now? Physical abuser guy. Look what he did to her. He bruised her. No, I didn't. I showed her where the physical block was that was going to take her down. Because guess what? You ever hear of people, they don't even bang against anything and they end up getting bruises, or every time they bang against something, they have a bruise? That person already has disease throughout their body. Let me tell you something. A fresh piece of fruit, you can drop it. It's not going to bruise. When something gets old and it starts to break down, a piece of fruit sits too long, it'll start to break down. It gets bruised and mushy. And that's exactly what's happening to us. And so when somebody works on somebody, we have to explain it to them when we work on you. If you do da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And if the tenderness takes 3 to 5 days, you're in good health. If it takes 5 to 10 days, then you're not in great health. Your circulation is way down. Your microcirculation, your healing capacity is really poor. You know what? Wolfe Non-Surgical and clapping will teach you exactly where the physical blocks are, and it'll actually teach you how much disease you've buried in your tissues, issues in your tissues because of issues in your mind, because your mind is a landmine first. You have to have a sick mind before a sick body, and you're not a sick person. You have beliefs that aren't honoring what? The human being. You are looking at yourself as a human doing. So I'm going to keep coming back to this. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You just have broken beliefs. And understand something. Don't you tell me that doesn't happen like that. My God, you went to school, you got out of school, let's say you just went to grade 12. So you went to grade 12, you came out of there, you didn't know how to do any accounting, manage your money, you didn't know what self-love, didn't know what self-care is, couldn't make a meal for yourself, okay? And you didn't respect yourself, you don't know how to protect yourself. Wow. This is why we are where we are. The whole system's corrupt, so just know that. Totally corrupt. Totally corrupt. From the bottom all the way to the top, and the higher you go, the stinkier it gets. And that's the reality. So you know what? Nature loves you. Your creator loves you. And we have to return to both of those things. All right. So What is the body mainly made out of? Bones, nerves, or muscle tissue? Tissue, isn't it? It's tissue. And so the issues are in your tissues. They're not in your bones. And as far as your nerve pain goes, well, you had to have inflammation in your tissues before you had it in your nerves. And understand something. When you've got nerve pain, whether it's sciatica, you know what? It's still issues in your tissues because the scar tissue is wrapped around, okay, around what we call the sacroiliac joint. And I could go in there with a person with sciatica 95% of the time and spend 10 to 15 minutes and get rid of their sciatica. That's right. And then we do other things like the pelvic enhancer, the pelvic squat, the clapping. Understand, the more that you take personal action, because everybody wants to sell you stuff, don't they? They want to sell you stuff. I don't want to sell you anything. I want to train you and sell you on you. I want to train you everything that I know. I want to make you into the practitioner. It's not a sales pitch. I'm telling you, this is what we do. And understand something. If you've always wanted to be a practitioner, don't think you need hundreds of thousands of dollars. Don't think that you need years of schooling. Let me tell you something. The more schooling you do, the more schooled you get. You need to understand that there's a genius in every one of us, and we have the God-given smarts to look after our body and to look after our family. And that's the issue right there. Stop looking at yourself as something less than you are, okay? All right, let's move on. So, scar tissue. All right, do you like this? Mistake. All right. Okay, here's the mistake. So we never learned how to control our emotions. When something goes wrong in the family, especially with women, the more they stress, the more they freak out, the more they love. When somebody's in the family and they have a heart attack or they get rushed to the hospital, whoever stresses out the most and shows the most suffering is the one who loves the most, right? I'm not telling you not to care, but I'm telling you to care for yourself. So every time that you create all this stress, you're causing inflammation in your brain. You're dumping all these chemicals. You're like a piece of steak on a barbecue. It is like you have a raging fire inside of you. You're burning up your tissues. You're shrinking your tissues. So a muscle tissue that could be an inch thick could be only maybe a quarter inch thick, or even paper thin by the time you get done with it, because you fried it out. And don't you think the media and don't you think the medical system doesn't know this? Don't you think that the people that are having you hide in your house when you're totally healthy, you think they don't know this? How many times have you got pissed off, depressed, anxious, anxiety? Oh my God. Did you know what I did yesterday? Yesterday, I got up in the morning and I said, gotta go. So there's flights to Mexico. So we're opening up at the Ixtapa Palace in Ixtapa, Mexico. We're opening up the World Training and Healing Center. This has got 200 condos in it, and this has been given to us, believe it or not. And it's beautiful. And we're going to be opening up there, and we're going to be able to bring families down and be able to charge them at a price that a whole family can come down and get trained how to look after themselves on an emotional, physical, and spirited level. Right from gardening to the food they make, to learning how to do my non-surgical and go in and maybe help pull mummy's fibroid apart, okay? Instead of having to make an appointment, all right, and then run their money dry continually going from pillar to post. So anyways, I went and booked the tickets. And guess what? Then I find out that, okay, so anyways, you can't go on the beach down there, okay, and there's no electricity in any hotels, and all the restaurants are closed, and I'm going, but the owner of the Ixtapa Palace says, but if you want to come, and I said, well, that's not going to be really great, so that puts everything behind, but so I just let that go. So how well are you going to let things go? What you can't do, you can't do. So stop being a doing, be a being, and get this, so move on. What is. I can't change it. And don't become a piece of beef jerky, guys. Okay? So here it is. All right? This is what everybody, their tissue looks like when you get cancer, arthritis, and every other autoimmune disease. And it can be any part of your body. And believe it or not, guess what? You see this? This little piece of beef jerky, that could have been probably about, I don't know. It could have been maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. Now look at it now. Look how skinny it is. And guess what? You'll go to a doctor and the doctor will say, Oh my God, we did an x-ray and we can't, nope, there's no cartilage in there. There's your bone on bone in the knee and your bone on bone in the hip. I'll give you a money back guarantee that the first treatment I'll prove that you're not. I'll give you a money back guarantee that you're saying, well, Dr. Wolfe, this is about a cancer show. This is not about knee replacement. Well, where do you think you get cancer from? Knee replacement. You can't put a foreign device in yourself and not think you're not going to get cancer. The last time you had a sliver in your hand, that felt kind of awful, didn't? But you're going, hey, but I don't feel that that implant anymore in my knee or in my hip or in my spine. I don't feel the mesh in my pelvis. Yeah, but guess what? It's causing inflammation throughout your whole body. Go figure. So the robotic industry wants to make us all out of robots, right? The drug industry wants to make us all out of druggies, and I'd like to make you all out of natural nut freaks. But yeah, hey, which one do you want? Which one's more dangerous? So anyway, so they're going to tell you that it's bone on bone, and I'm telling you it's not. Your muscle tissue is calcified and crystallized, and we're going to prove it to you. People come here for usually about 7 days. We're going to prove it to you in 7 days that it's not true, and it's going to heal and it's going to grow back. But understand, what does the surgeon want to do? Well, I'll give you surgery. What's a drug dealer want to do? Oh, well, sell you drugs. Okay, so that's how it is. What does a cancer doctor want to do? We'll give you chemotherapy and radiation. So you understand something. You get what you deserve. You pick the therapy at the vibration that you're at. If you believe you're a human doing, you're going to do what everybody else wants you to do. If you're a human being, you're going to get it on and feed your spirit and rise above it. And that's the bottom line. So that's what's, it's called spontaneous healing, would be understanding what you truly are in this very instant. That's spontaneous healing. And then holding it. But how are you ever going to hold the reality that, you are a spirit being when everybody else in your family are dumbed right down? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? It's going to take practice. It's going to take repetition. 3, 2, 1, I got this. 3, 2, 1, I got this. That was the old me. There's a new sheriff in town called Total Love, Self-Love. You are totally allowed to love yourself and care for yourself. But even that feels foreign, doesn't it? And I'm going to totally love and care for myself 100%, first and foremost, fill up my heart. You know why? Because I am not going to terrorize my children. I am not going to terrorize my partner or my friends or anyone else. Darrell, you are totally responsible for making sure that you do not terrorize this world, that you are a positive person in this world. Okay? And mind your own business, Darrell. And guess what? Mind your own business, which means look after yourself. And when you can take action to help someone, you be there. And you hold the line. And don't get scared. And don't have any fear. And that's what I'm about. And I'm not kidding. This is what I live for. And I need you to at least stick your toe in, would you? All right. So Wolfe Non-Surgical. Well, okay, so whether it's Wolfe Non-Surgical or you do the clapping, this is a clapper, and guess what? We had 500 of them. I said I was going to do the clapping classes. I did a clapping class, and it was clap your heart and lungs for health. And wow, can you believe it? We had 500 clappers, and they all sold in 7 days. So then I'm going to clap my whole body. I'm going to show every part of the body. I'm going to talk about every condition. And I'm going to tell you that if you clap, you should only go red in that area. And if you go purple, if you go light purple, and if you go dark purple or black, that's how bad it is. And you already have the disease. Okay? And then we're going to talk about the different meridians that you have. And if you go purple here, then we know that you've got probably a lung problem and a heart problem here. And then if you take a look at most people and you were to lay them down, you'd see, guess what? That their heart, even though they're right-handed, over their heart, it's a 1/2 inch to 1 inch higher. And that's the fist that they put around it, okay? Because they've got broken hearts. They've got angry hearts. And that's a scar tissue issue, all right? And just understand something. Your body can heal from almost anything. Okay, but it has to happen in your mind first. So Wolfe Non-Surgical, we use the elbow. We go on a 45-degree angle. We open up the fibers. Look at, okay, let's say that was a normal muscle tissue. What happens when you're stressed out? What happens when you only do contracting exercises? What happens when you're always contracting? Well, what happens? I'll tell you what happens. The muscle fibers come together really tight. They even overlap each other. Then what happens? Oh, I guess they even shrink and they come down into a knot. Oh, I got a knot in my neck. I got a knot in my back. I just threw my back out. I got a knot in my hip. Oh, wait a minute. I got a tumor. That's a big knot, isn't it? Oh boy. Right? So what are we going to do? We're going to go in there and we're going to open up the fibers. So what we're going to do is untie the knot first, and we can do it. Then we're going to open up the fibers. And guess what? As soon as you do that, spontaneously, it goes from scar tissue to connective tissue, because guess what? You brought the life force in. Now, if you don't want to believe me about the spirit thing, then understand something. Your spirit can't flow through a body that has a scar tissue, crystallization, calcified issue all the way throughout the body, which most people do. You slow down your energy field. That's right. So if I'm outside, I can pick up the telephone call easy. If I'm down in a basement, I can't get the call. So the more concrete there is, oh wait, displaced calcium, and the more wood there is, thicker the wood, oh, that would be scar tissue. Okay, and the more crystallization, the more glue to keep things tight, the less I'm going to get messages. All right. So what we do is we want to go in and melt the crystals. We want to transform the scar tissue. We want to release and replace the calcium back into the bones. And the fibroids, we're going to go right into the fibroids and take those suckers apart. You get me a fibroid as big as a cantaloupe, and I'll reduce the size of it without any, well, you know, there'll be some feeling. There'll be some like, oh, yeah, I can feel that, you know, because we're pulling beef jerky apart. But the person, it's not going to be super painful or anything. And we're going to teach them how to breathe through this and let go to unwind that. And I'll take that fibroid down by 20 to 40% in an hour. Yeah. And so because of muscle memory, it'll want to come back, but that's not going to happen because we're going to teach about the clapping, the essential oils, the DMSO. We're going to teach about the squatting. We're going to teach about the belly button therapy. We're going to teach about the pelvic expander. We're going to teach about all of these things. Hey, expand your mind, expand your pelvis, and watch what happens, okay? You're going to rock that show because in your pelvis is the root chakra, and that's where you collect all this information and communication, so it goes up through your spine in your spinal fluid to feed your brain. So for every bit of scar tissue all the way, okay? And this is why, guess what? Let's get rid of the scar tissue and then let's do a chiropractic adjustment, okay? Or let's do foam rolling, or let's do the pelvic expander and straighten that spine right out. So the reality is, are you ready to take personal action and love yourself well? That's the deal right there. That's the deal. And then with tumors, we're going to surround the tumor. We're going to knock its legs off. Not knock them off, but pull them apart, because those are the feeders. And then what we're going to do is look for the crack. Every tumor has a crack. Every tumor has a soft spot, has a weak point. We're going to find it, and then we're going to gently start working into that. Because a tumor, the more angry it is, the more hate it has in it, the harder it is. So we got to learn. We got to help the person learn how to love themselves so they can soften up, so that they can go with the flow. And you know, they maybe don't even know what they hate or what they're angry about. So we don't have to go back there and find it and go dumpster diving. All we got to do is focus on what we want out of life. What do you want out of life? Focus on that. Don't focus on what you don't want. Don't think about the vaccinations coming for you and the 5G. Let's take one step at a time. You know, if we were to get everyone to just love, honor, and respect themselves, there would be no 5G. GGG. Come on. If we were to get everybody to just do that, all this would just melt like the Matrix. You ever see that movie? Well, guess what? We're in it right now. You better pull that sucker out of your head, and you better take the red pill, because the blue one's making you awful blue, okay? All right, so we want to lengthen, strengthen, detox, and tone our tissue. If you're not doing that, you're not doing therapy. And if you do that, you'll have flexibility, elasticity, increased circulation. Isn't that what it's all about? And guess what? Remember something. Your veins and your arteries only make up 24% of your circulation. The other part is your microcirculation, which is 76%. That's the microcirculation, and that's the circulation that counts, guys. So we got to get in there and we got to make sure that that microcirculation is working. And you'll be young again. And like I said, we'll go in and work on your spine. You'll be 1 to 2 inches taller. You want to be taller? Want to be taller in an hour? We'll do it. We'll measure you. We'll do it, and you'll be taller. Oh my God, I didn't shrink. No, all the discs in between your vertebrae are now beef jerky because of the inflammation and the dehydration that you have in your body. So it's a mistake, right? You threw it on the barbecue. Okay, all right. So I talked about this earlier. This is called the pelvic enhancer, if you take a look on the left. You see how the leg's hanging down and the other leg is up? If you want, let us know. Give us a call at the office. We'll give you the phone number. We have somebody in the United States that makes these for us and somebody that makes them in Canada, and it's called a pelvic enhancer. Now, you see how you have the one leg up and the one leg down? You could put a chair there because most people would feel like their pelvis is going to rip because it's calcified, crystallized in scar tissue. So you can put your leg on a chair. Now, I can put my leg and hang it and put 20 pounds on my ankle. And my leg is straight. You see how there's a little gap between the leg? There, we had that on purpose. You should have no gap. Your knee should be flat against the board. That's when we know your pelvis is open. So if you were to get this and do this, it would be really important. Now, you can get 3 chairs, line them up, put them by the doorway, put your leg up, the one leg up in the doorway and hang the other one down until you get a pelvic expander. But you may want to get one. We have somebody that makes them in Canada and in the United States. Call the office, and we don't make a penny off of them. Let me tell you something. You want to go in and do the most amazing thing? Guess what? You think yoga is something? Guess what? Here's the problem with yoga. The problem with yoga is you don't hold it long enough. When you do the pelvic expander, you want to hold for 15 minutes to a half an hour each leg and then find out how you feel. That sciatica pain, that low back pain, that pelvic pain, okay, trouble making love, that cesarean, the scar tissue issue. You think I'm kidding? Guess what? You're going to want to call me up and thank me. Okay? So when you're ready to take massive action and lay there and breathe, okay, and relax and get to know yourself. All right? And then there's the belly button therapy, which is the middle picture, and then the pelvic activation squat. There's 3 different squats. You can go and see all of these videos on my DIY, do it yourself on YouTube. All right? So this is, guys, let me tell you, when you do the belly button therapy, you're going to release 70% of the serotonin, and you're going to release 50% of the dopamine in 5 minutes. Nothing else does that in the world. The belly button's the most important button to push. And when you do that, you're going to put yourself into a parasympathetic state. Wouldn't that be something? So you might want to just carry that belly button kit. You can see it on my website. You can purchase them if you want, that little belly button kit. So stay connected to your breath. Now understand something. We need to do this, guys, because they gave us the toilet and they took away the pelvic squat and they took away our life. So understand that. When you think that people in the East, okay, are squatting down and they don't use toilet paper and they're the ones, okay, that are uncivilized, guess what? We're the uncivilized ones with the toilets. So go figure. So what you believe could be wrong. So when you learn to squat, you're going to open up your pelvis, which opens up your main energy. Wait till you see what happens. Wait till you see that bladder problem. Wait till you see painful making love. Wait till you see the prostate problem. Wait till you see the fallopian tube, I could keep going, endometriosis, the constipation, do I need to keep going, the hemorrhoids, all of it. The Holy Grail is in your lower abdomen and in your pelvis. So just know that, okay? So I'm just going to go through this lightly. You might want to check out our Whole Life Coach certification. Okay, it's 8 days. You can come and you can join us in person, all right? Go take a look at itioh.com about that. We also teach what's called facial sculpturing. Wouldn't it be great to get all the wrinkles out and the deep liver lines and the jowls? Well, that you can do that. You can be young again. We also teach what is called the perfect pain-free pregnancy. Wouldn't it be something to actually, if you were a couple and you wanted to get pregnant, and to realize how to deal with each other emotionally, how to start really loving yourself and each other, to get rid of the whole husband and wife thing, to come together as 2 spirit beings, that we're going to bring another spirit being into the world to help you to remember what you truly are. That's what it really is. And wouldn't it be something to not have morning sickness? I'm not kidding. Wouldn't it be something to not have aches and pains throughout your body? Wouldn't it be something to deliver the baby in a half an hour? Let me tell you something. It's a scar tissue, crystallization, displaced calcium situation. And guess what? Your pelvis and your hips become as tight as a clam, don't they? Well, what if somebody in the family, like your husband, knew how to go in there and restore all that scar tissue and to loosen everything up and to untie the knots and keep the blood flow in the pelvis and to, as you're expanding, be able to work on your spine, your hips, and never have that problem. That's the reality. We put this whole program together for not just our practitioners, but for couples. So, and our Wolfe Non-Surgical certification, it's 11 days. And in 11 days, I promise that you will be the world's best body worker, and you'll know it. How would you like to be able to go in there, and all the other therapists out there, how would you like to be able to go in there and take somebody with a cane that's limping, and they can put their cane down in one treatment? It's a scar tissue issue. So, you know, you can go in there and massage it all you want, put the acupuncture needles in all you want, but until you get rid of the scar tissue and bring back the circulation, it's never going to happen. So it doesn't matter where it is on the body. And I know that I'm really talking a big story, but there's one thing to actually talk it and another one to do it, okay? And we're opening up Extapa, okay, the Extapa World Training and Healing Center in February. And listen, any practitioners out there, if you've got courses and you want to train them in the most beautiful place in Mexico, and it really is. It's clean, it's peaceful, there's no crime. It's a beautiful place. You can go online and take a look at the Extapa Palace. We welcome you. We welcome you. We want to create a whole community. And we can take 200 families at a time. How's that? So we want to reach out to the world and let everybody know they can bring their family, bring their husband, bring their wife, bring their caretaker, and we're going to go in and we're going to teach you how to create the perfect day and how to master your mind and your body. All right? So let's move on. So, Abdominal Restoration. Okay, everybody, so listen to me. So you got heartburn. So when you got heartburn, you get scar tissue all around your sternum. And when we go in there and we open that up, you're going to feel the crystallization and the scar tissue in here. And if you ever get heartburn, make sure you pull the baking soda out, okay? A level tablespoon in a large glass of water, okay? Or just a rounded teaspoon if you want to, if you're a smaller person, all right? And drink that, and that's going to neutralize that, because baking soda is amazing for alkalining. It's all about alkalining, and it's all about acidity, right? So a hiatal hernia, okay, same thing. From heartburn, we go to hiatal hernia. And you know what? When you do the non-surgical, you're not going to believe this, but a hiatal hernia is where the actual, where your esophagus comes up through and it gets up on top of the diaphragm. And guess what? It's painful, but guess what? We can pull that right back down. And you get all this scar tissue, and then it's going to stay like that. But you can go in with Wolfe Non-Surgical and reverse that. When you're talking about liver problems, when you got liver pain all the time, you're going to find scar tissue there. Gallbladder problems, same time. Stomach, small intestine, large intestine. How many people have had colitis, Crohn's, diverticulitis, okay? Diarrhea. All of this stuff is inflammation, and it leaves adhesions. And what about this? What about cesareans? Do you know what happens when you have a cesarean? Well, they cut right through, don't they? And then you grow these legs after the surgery, 2 to 3 inches long, that wrap around your small and large intestine, stop you from pooping. How about they grow so long that they will wrap around your bladder, and you're peeing, it's painful, or you can't hold much pee. Or we do know this. After that, guess what happens too? And when you've been inflamed too much, 50% of the female population leak urine. Not cool. All right? All of this you can reverse. All right. Okay, so it's like this. Your large intestine is your second brain. But for most people, it's not. It's called swamp drain. And the reality is that between the antibiotics, between the food we eat, right? Between not realizing that we need to have movement. We need to have good movements, like 2 to 3 movements a day. Most people don't move like that. Or their stool sinks right to the bottom, or it's diarrhea, which means if you have diarrhea, it means that you have so much infection because you were constipated for so long. But the reality is, if it wasn't for your large intestine, and if you would have maintained your large intestine properly every day, 85% of all your pain, inflammation, and symptoms wouldn't be there on a physical level. And that's the deal, because your large intestine is your second brain. It also is the major part of your immune system, like 85%. And this is where most of your energy level comes. And whether you're talking about problems in your abdomen or problems in your pelvis, it's coming from that. Whether you're talking about hip problems, because now you have to have hip surgery, where do you think the inflammation came from? Well, you were so inflamed in your pelvis, it had to go out to your hips, because it had to spread it out, because it really wasn't into having a tumor in your pelvis. So it has to spread it out. And that's why you get the big hips. That's why you get the scar tissue. That's why you get the stiff hips. That's why you get the low back pain. All right. So these are the things, 3 things that I tell everyone to use. Daily cleansing tea, black gold, tummy love. You do that and try it out and see what you think. All right. And if you have any questions, please call us. Okay. So let's talk about this. Gallstones. Does anybody realize what gallstones are? Gallstones are calcium and they're cholesterol. Well, the cholesterol is because you had to have so much cholesterol because it's like candle wax to goop the cracks in your arteries to patch up things because you're so acidic. The calcium's being pulled from your bones. And listen to me, that's a precancerous state. You know that, right? If you're pulling calcium that hard, that fast from your bones, then you've got a precancerous state going on, which means you need to really get it together. You don't need to get your gallbladder cut out. You can do the Halter Clark gallbladder liver cleanse and then get doing the ultimate coffee enema and start flushing all this out. Don't be going and doing any surgery unless it's an emergency, because that's what surgery's there for. When you make surgery your health care, you're going to get in big trouble. You can't live without a gallbladder, and if you will live, but you're going to have tons of trouble. How many people get bowel problems after they get their gallbladder out, or even bowel cancer? All right, so I already talked about this. Your pelvis is the soup bowl. Do you see this? The fuse is the tip of your coccyx. It's your tail. Your coccyx is your tail. We go in there and get rid of the scar tissue because your tail needs to move, wag like the dog. It can't be frozen. And understand something. Anybody that has prostate problems, bladder problems, ovarian cysts, endometriosis, or they say that they have to get surgery, you know what? If you were to go in there and go and work on the back part of their spine in the coccyx and sacrum area, and then come and work on their pelvis and loosen up all that scar tissue. And if they were to doing some padding and clapping in the pelvic expander, and if they were to get on a really good whole plant-based diet along with advanced water fasting, you're going to turn this all around. Listen, if it's not a 911 emergency, why are you letting someone go after you with a knife? I want to know that. Well, I'll tell you why. You're going to pick the level of therapy for the level of love you have for yourself. Someone who truly loves himself, they're not going to go to surgery unless it's an emergency. They're going to look for other options. They're not going to forget that their creator said, this was the greatest thing I created. Your body will heal itself if you are in harmony with universal and earth laws being nature. So understand something. It's either information or inflammation that is being collected in your pelvis. You have to understand something. In your lower abdomen and in your pelvis is where 85% of your energy and information is collected. And then it goes into the spinal fluid to feed the brain. All right? Your spine is the telephone pole to take the information to the brain. And then the information from the brain comes back down to your large intestine and to all the other organs. It's just a loop. So how many physical blocks do you have in your spine? And do you have a big cement block in your pelvis? Do you waddle? Do you have pain? Do you have to urinate 4 times a night? Or can you not urinate anymore without a catheter? Do you have prostate problems? Can you not get it up? Okay, whether you want to believe this or not, but guess what? A male today, because of everything, because of the GMOs, because of all the chemicals, because of the 4G and all the Wi-Fi, a male reaches his sexual peak at 25 and by 40. It used to be 70. So this is what's going on. So if you don't want to bring your vibration up, okay, nothing's going to be standing up. And this is the problem. The more inflammation, the more scar tissue formation, the more calcification, the more crystallization. It's the same old story. You know, either I'm onto something or I hardly know anything. One or the other. Okay? So 49% of women leak urine. Okay? 1 out of 3 women suffer from sexual pain. This is all crystallization and scar tissue formation. I'm going to tell you something. You bring me a woman who has sexual pain, okay, or leaking urine. It'll take a little longer for the leaking urine because how much did she damage the valve, okay, in the bladder? How much was that damaged? How much scar tissue's there? But we can turn it around. I swear to God, you can do this. All the things that I've been repeating, I don't want to repeat them over and over again like a broken record. but 1 out of 3 women will suffer from sexual pain. Okay? And I'm going to tell you something. One treatment, it's usually done. It doesn't happen anymore. Boy, doesn't that ruin a relationship. 50% of all women have pelvic organ prolapse. Think about this. That means that there's so much inflammation and putrefaction that it's actually tissue degeneration in that whole pelvic floor. Why do you think women are losing babies more and more? Okay, so 33 million women in America suffer chronic pelvic pain. All right, so pelvic restoration. So figure out, if it's not doing something with us, figure out how you're going to go in there and alleviate that scar tissue formation, that inflammation, that crystallization. And understand something. If you've got a loose tummy, okay, all right, you've got muffin tops and spare tires, understand something. You better look at your large intestine, because that's the holy grail right there. And you're never going to get rid of this stuff unless you look at things like advanced water fasting. So after 40, do you ever notice no matter how you work out, you can't get rid of it? That stuff is so stubborn because that's really toxic tissue. So don't forget about the pelvic floor. It's really important. Don't forget what I told you about your spine. The more you get rid of the scar tissue, the more flexible it's going to be. And understand something. When they tell you that you need to get an implant, if it's not an emergency that you have to be there, let's go in and get rid of the scar tissue crystallization calcification issue, because guess what? The inflammation, even when it comes to breast problems, it starts in the pelvis. It starts in the pelvis. Breast problems, unless it's a root canal. Look at the pelvis for any type of breast problem. And understand something, toxic storage tanks, okay, of toxins. This is what breasts become, because they're fat tissue. Remember that your body makes fat to store inflammation and toxins. And if you're tired and exhausted, it's going to look towards your breast to do it. So you better detoxify and figure out how you're going to bring that inflammation down. And calcium deposits, same thing. When you've got calcium deposits, it's a pre-cancer situation. And understand this, the same fibrotic scar tissue that's in a sports injury is the same scar tissue that tumors are made from. All right? So what we do is we go in and we work on that breast around where the wire used to be, under the arm where the strap used to be, and we have to loosen up the sternum, because guess what? That's where the calcium gets pulled. When there's inflammation in the breast, so much gets pulled from your sternum into your breast. So we're going to go in there and detoxify them. We're going to teach you how to pad and clap, even those breasts, believe it or not. It's all about circulation, ladies, okay? So understand that. And if you go in and take a look at the heart, you can fix that. And if you're not going to fix your heart on an emotional level, then heart disease or cancer is going to come for you. So you've got to figure out on how you're going to fill your heart up with love, everyone. Okay? So kidney stones, same thing. There's so much acidity, so much inflammation in the kidneys that you're pulling the calcium to try to buffer those kidneys down. So what are you drinking? How are you living? And there's the kidney stones. So understand something. The composition of a tumor is a dehydrated fist made of crystallization, scar tissue, calcium, and mutated cells. Yes, but understand the whole tumor is not cancer. All right? And it's all held together through what? Emotions of fear, hate, and anger. So understand something. That hip surgery you need, or that tumor, it started in the pelvis, and it started usually from the large intestine. Okay? So it's the domino effect of thought that creates a sandpaper syndrome. You get scar tissue in your joints, and it rubs on each other, and that's it. The crystallization, the calcification, and the scar tissue are wearing each other down. So whether you've got a tumor in your calf, whether you've got a tumor in your hand, whether you have a tumor or a goiter, all of this can be reversed. Whether it's a lipoma, okay? Whether you've got inflammation and you've got a hearing problem, it's scar tissue, it's crystallization. You can reverse this. We've done it. You've got to get rid of the scar tissue, and whether it's a sinus problem, whether it's a TMJ problem. And with TMJ, that's holding on to anger. Okay, so that's holding on to anger. And a lot of people will actually have to buy and get made for them very expensive plates to put in their mouth, when all we had to do is go in and unloosen the knot in the TMJ so that it would bring it back to normal. Nobody thinks about this. So understand something. The invisible creates the visible. So thanks for joining me. Don't forget, everyone, tomorrow, June 25th, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, join me for Toxic and Twisted Hands, Rheumatoid Arthritis Reversed. And also on Friday, June the 26th at 10 a.m., Breast Tumor Reversed. When watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe below and make sure that you click on the bell to enable notifications so that you never miss a show. And talking about upcoming shows, Monday, June the 29th, Doc Talk Q&A, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All our shows and all our Q&As are time-stamped so that you can find your questions or topics easily on YouTube. Also, if you wish to listen to the audio version of any of our shows, you can go to iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. And for anyone who wishes additional information or training, please stay to the end and you will be able to see where you can find all the links to that which you seek. Again, thank you to all my listeners who make this show possible. God bless everyone and take your power back. Better still, let's stop giving our power away. And remember, when we come together, 3, 2, 1, we got this. If you're looking for life-saving and life-changing information, well, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to click and subscribe. Stay connected.